Turn my speaker on. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick explanation as to why we're meeting in the afternoon as opposed to in the morning as we normally do, is that we've just all been out at Christchurch International Airport for the launch of the trial of the first autonomous electric vehicle in New Zealand, and the airport company and HMI Technologies have come together to develop this program where the new technology will be tested, and I think it's great for Christchurch. It certainly will help put us on the map in terms of being innovative and creative and working with these new technologies. I know that some people are quite nervous of what these new technologies might mean, with exponential changes happening obviously more and more quickly as we go. But I think the comment that I made this morning was, autonomous electric vehicles are the way of the future. They're coming, ready or not, and I'd actually rather that we're ready. And being part of being ready is being part of being a leader at that. As we enter an exponential curve, I'd rather be a leader than a follower. It gives us the opportunity to really see how these things could create enormous benefit, both in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of Christchurch as a place where things get done. So it's pretty exciting. So thank you very much for the tolerance in terms of starting later. The only apology that I have is from Councillor Glenn Livingston. And would somebody like to move that? Tim Scandrett, seconded Pauline Cotter. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. In terms of declarations of interest, I have received one. So Aaron Kewen has declared his interest in item 14, submission on the health fluoridation of drinking water amendment bill, which is appropriate because as a member of the DHB you should be enabled to vote freely at that in that forum in relation to legislation that transfers decision making from the council to the DHB. The third item on the agenda is public participation and Canterbury Independent Advocacy. No, I don't think it's called Advocacy, is it? Advocacy Service. They changed their name. Assistance Service. Lorraine Guthrie, Neil McKellar and Vanessa Taylor. Would you like to come forward? Can you? Oh.
Sorry. It's my knee.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yep.
Right. I just wanted the microphone on, that was all, but okay. It's on now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, independent advocacy, including insurance assistance. So, thank you for your time today. Our goal really is just to leave with you an image, a vision of what advocacy in this sort of unique environment in Christchurch actually is. So we have here our vulnerable client, who is very vulnerable, just fell over, who has a number of reports here that have been accumulated over 6 years, has met these people, a claims technical expert, a consents officer, a builder, a project manager, contracted loss adjuster, engineer, senior claims manager, a claims specialist, a drainage and landscape expert, an asbestos contractor, an electrician, a foundation specialist, and behind there is the ghost of the whole process of working with EQC. So we have our vulnerable client who either has those people in front of them at a meeting or has their reports that they're expected to read and understand. So in a particular situation, working through these sorts of issues, we understand that there's now a sort of a facilitation process. Neil is a facilitator / broker.
So Lorraine's asked me to take on the role of a facilitator or a broker in this situation. So we have all of these people who our homeowner is dealing with, and I've been brought in and paid for by the insurer or the government to be a facilitator. That immediately raises some issues for me and some dilemmas for me. I can't sit next to Lorraine and be, you know, an advocate for her, so I want to make clear the difference between an advocate and a facilitator. I need to be impartial, independent, or at least seem to be, even though I'm being paid for by one party. My own personal ethics will be to be impartial, generate trust and confidence in Vanessa and my ability, but at the end of the day I'm being paid for by the insurer to get people across the line. That's the mandate and remit that I've been given. So I can't sit next to Vanessa and help her, but I will try and remain impartial and independent as I can be in the context of being paid for by one party.
So as a CS advocate, our role is to sit with our vulnerable client. We see facilitation as the role of the insurer. They should be paying for it because that's just part of the claims resolution process. What's happening at the moment from our experience is it's sort of a low-level mediation, which is about brokering a deal, trying to get people over the line, accepting some sort of resolution, whether it's right or not. From our, we believe that advocacy evens out the power balance, it reduces inequality, discrimination. Through advocacy, the vulnerable client is able to, first of all, access these reports, speak to the people, the professionals, understand, have the technical information and the time to actually work through them, and be able to understand and assimilate these in a manner where I don't have to worry about, the client doesn't have to worry about whether or not they should trust what's being put forward. CS advocates are intentionally on the side of the client. That is our role. We're not in the middle or anything. We are on the side of the client. And our experience over the past 3 years is that clients that have held to their position through EQC and now with the insurer are usually right. I know there's a perception out there that it's about greed, but our experience is the homeowner knows their home and they've held to the position because they have known that they are right. An advocate can be useful in that whole facilitated process because they are able to put forward the client's views, vulnerabilities, or whatever to make sure that the best possible outcome can happen through a facilitated session. From our point of view, we see advocacy as a community solution. It's about getting clients back into their community, into their families and functioning. Yeah.
So we just wanted to leave you with a picture of what advocacy looks like. You probably know from your own personal experiences that even highly functioning people have difficulty in dealing with these situations when you're dealing with so many different people in such a context, and we're talking about potentially vulnerable people who are on their own, as Vanessa is representing, trying to deal with that morass. So having someone as an advocate on her side, presenting the picture and making the challenges is an essential part of the resolution design component. And that, I think, is, as Lorraine is saying, is not only generating a fair solution in terms of what needs to happen with their homes, but it's generating healthy and well families, and as a result, a healthy community. And that's why we're presenting here to you today.
And just from a client's perspective, what's it like for you, Vanessa, to have an advocate with you?
Amazing. I don't know what I would have done without it, and it's about having someone to listen and trust, and really, really good, really good. So it's about having the confidence to know that you've got someone fighting in your corner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for making the time for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to get councillors now to move to item 10, and I'm going to invite representatives of Regenerate Christchurch to come forward. I'm going to deal with this item as a deputation by appointment, but I've actually asked you to come on behalf of the councillors in order to do a presentation on the paper 10 Cathedral Square and Surrounds Regeneration Strategy. So if you'd like to come forward, that would be great. Thank you very much. Right, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. As you know, the Minister supporting Greater Christchurch Regeneration and the Christchurch City Council have asked Regenerate Christchurch to focus on three initial priority areas, being the Central City, the residential red zones and New Brighton. We'd like to focus the conversation today on the work that we're doing in the Central City and formally seek representation from the Council to be part of the steering group that we're establishing. So I'd like to hand over to Jim Lundy, who's General Manager, Strategy and Regeneration Planning, who's going to take you through the approach, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Kia ora. You might be asking, one of the questions is, why did we choose this area as a priority area? And why on the slide have I called what everybody calls Cathedral Square and Surrounds the Merchant City? It's just a working title. But the reason is, city centres hold an incredibly important point in the economics of any city region. They are traditionally been on crossroads, rivers, ports or defensible areas. They're where people came together to trade. Trade was the lifeblood of cities. But it's also in the best cities, when they advanced, the centres became the cultural centres, the areas where Renaissance happened, the area where art happens, where education happens at the highest level. They provide something that suburbia doesn't, or the surrounding inner cities don't. It's a place where everybody comes into to experience things that they can't experience in the wider area. The other thing is, it is the commons. It's the area that everybody owns. It's not a shopping mall. You don't have to spend money in a city centre. You can sit and enjoy watching things pass. And when you think of cities like that, unfortunately, images of Europe pass your mind, of the walled cities, the centres that have transformed. But they have all transformed over time, from central business districts to city centres to cultural and creative centres. We have an opportunity for that transformation at the moment. So it's probably not, this map shows an aerial of the area that we are going to start looking at intensely and pulling together all the various projects that are already happening here. In this area we have the hotels already appearing, including the new Crown Plaza 4.5-star hotel. Other commitments from the existing hotels that have been damaged to be refurbished and repurposed as hotels. We have investment by the council in the library. We have a commitment towards the convention centre or conference centre. We have the town hall coming on stream in a couple of years, be finished. And on the different areas...
Less than 18 months.
18 months, yeah. But it's on time, on budget, which is great. And I had a look over it not long ago, and it's going to be an amazing, again, a new amazing function.
Yeah.
Not very far, we've got the art centre and the art gallery. They're outside. But what surrounds the city centre, we've got the business district. All the council offices, the international offices, they've all relocated out of centre. Not necessarily a bad thing when you look at disruptive technology in the future. Probably, you know, I'll be too old, but you'll find another person looking at how do you regenerate that area in 20 years' time, what do you do with the buildings? But that's what city building is. It's a constantly reiterative process. We've got the retail area really kicking on, and in fact, already better than it was before. It's providing better opportunities for retail, definitely serious competition for out-of-town centres. So you don't need to go out of town centre for shopping anymore. We've got the east frame with higher density residential, and then to the north we've got the mixed use area, which is bubbling away and happening already. A great place to live, great place to build housing, close to the centre. But again, coming back, why did we choose this place? The red doesn't indicate the imperial map of colonialist England. It's the land that is not yet committed to development. There isn't any resource consent sitting on it. There might be buildings or there might not be buildings. There is a large area of land that is waiting for new uses to happen. So the purpose of the regeneration strategy and the regeneration plan is to work with a group of experts, a group of stakeholders, and the wider community to fill this up with exciting uses and places that the private sector can't wait to build. In a nutshell, that's what we're doing. Because Regeneration Christchurch, we don't build, we create a framework. If we need, we can create legislation. But I see our job is to help forge a vision for the future, not for this century, but the next century. We have been given an opportunity to recast the city centre as a creative and cultural centre, whilst the business districts surround it. And to that extent, it's a unique opportunity to provide a unique environment that's people-friendly, car-on-friendly, creativity-friendly, education, arts and residential. It's a big challenge, but that's what the journey that we're asking everybody to embark on with us. So the process of regeneration, we are still in the process of defining what regeneration means for a place like Christchurch, because there is no other first world city suffered this level of damage. So, but in the research that I've done, the one that stood out, and it encapsulates all the other ones, urban regeneration intends to change the nature of place by involving residents and stakeholders, embracing multiple objectives and activities with partnerships, working with different stakeholders. It's not urban renewal. Urban renewal is where you go in and you build something. Urban regeneration is when you create a climate where everybody can go in and do what they do within that climate and within a framework in a coordinated fashion, in a celebratory fashion. So we are about facilitating and empowering action by many, not us controlling it. We're not just focused on physical forum, it has to include cultural, social, economic and community actions. My experience in previous projects, when there's been studies done later on my projects, the projects that have been the most successful have been the cultural and community projects. I'm old enough that most of the physical projects have actually been redone again in time in my most successful projects. But the ones that linger are the cultural and creative projects, even things like festivals. They go on for 30, 40 years, long beyond the life of a particular use in a building. And we have to ensure long-term self-sufficiency for the whole of Christchurch, economically, socially, environmentally. We can't have anything that's going to be a long-term cost on the community. It has to be a long-term gain, not short-term, but a long-term gain for the community. So the strategy provides clear, well-supported vision for the area. That's why we've asked for a stakeholders group. It's a touchstone of community and stakeholder attitudes. They're not a decision-making body, but they're a recommendation-making body. But as we know, if you get the right people together, they have a network and a tree that flows out from them. And that's what we expect for them, is to reach into their networks. We have to answer the question of how will we live, work and play in this area in the future, because many of the uses that traditionally would go into a central city aren't actually available to us. So this is really an interesting and exciting opportunity to discover the next century city centre. And I'm calling it a city centre around the CBD quite specifically because our CBD has shifted. The earthquake moved it. It's quite funny. The tectonic shift of the CBD. That's a good thing because CBDs are struggling in America to gain the foothold that they had before. We have to identify any planning changes and other statutory policies and tools, including the regeneration plan, which will enable the vision to be implemented. So we're not shirking away from legislation, but only if it's needed. If there's already an existing legislation, why not use it? We'll recommend immediate initiatives to bring more people into the city, and we're already working on that. So this project has already started. It started long before. It started before Regeneration Christchurch was there. And we have to reinforce a positive international image for the future city. We don't want to be the second city in New Zealand. We want to be the first city in the world. You know, the city that welcomes new technology, welcomes the dawn, and welcomes new ways of living. So the steering group is there to guide the development and strategy, make sure that the team, the technical team, have got a touchstone and I guess an ideas trust who will shape and form the vision. That doesn't mean to say we won't be going outside that group to seek wider involvement. And as we said, also, we're happy to engage with other groups and appear and discuss in workshops with them and absorb that information. So it's not a closed door. So the big questions we will be looking at and are looking at now, and we've got some really exciting things might be happening, like Cambridge University join us on studies to look at this very issue on a long-term basis. What kind of centre do we want? Well, Share an Idea talked about a fine grain. They didn't use these words, but that's an urban design jargon. But an intricate city centre full of lanes and places that people can enjoy, full of business and new businesses. An active square, a place that people can go 24 hours a day and there's something happening there and it's overlooked and safe. So we're picking up on that. One of it's quite interesting for all the wonderful squares in the world, and some people know I worked a long time in Melbourne. One of it's just been voted the best square in the world, which is Federation Square. Well, I was there when Federation Square was conceived and I didn't like the architecture. So I was a naysayer on that. I liked the use. But in fact, it set it apart. It said, Melbourne isn't as boring as you thought it was. We've changed. And in that sense, it was good. But the other thing that brought it, none of the spaces are too big, but there's multiple squares within one square. And it created a centre for all the cultural things that happen in Melbourne, all the theatre groups and all the music and all the interests to come and perform in their art centres. And so there is a revisioning of that part. And yes, it has a cathedral that sits there, very proud and architecturally beautiful, but it doesn't dictate the uses of it. It's just part of it. It's part of that huge circus of life that happens in the area. And greenery just doesn't mean greenery on the ground. We can have greenery above the ground. We have green buildings. We can have canopies of vegetation, a softness, an intricacy, a vibrancy that we can have. And the bottom slide is Adelaide, the white dinner. We could have run that in 2 or 3 weeks if we wanted in the square. Why not? So what we're talking about is a process, not just a plan. If it's an incredibly successful process, we might never need a plan. That would be the most successful outcome, which is strange coming from a designer. But the most successful process is one that at the end everybody owns and is doing intuitively. Because most of the great cities were built without plans. They were built because a group of people got together with a vision of how it would be created. And then they created the rules around that made the vision happen. Where instead, what we traditionally do is create the rules and expect the rules to create the vision. And it doesn't really work. So that's all I've got to say about that. And I wish you well in your town building exercise.
Very good. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to put, Jimmy?
One question, okay. Thank you for your presentation. Because you particularly emphasize regarding to this one, the social, culture, and the economic well-being. But I review your steering group. I didn't see any person on behalf of the multicultural community. I'm not sure because the CBD also one of the key district to attract, lots of people from the international, from nationwide, from regional, also from the local. I'm not sure whether have any group, any person represented with the multicultural group. Have anyone?
It could be an oversight. I just expected that a number of the representatives would represent their organisations, but would also come from a multicultural background. If that's not the case when we put the names together, then we will look at that specifically. It might be, I have to confess, I've been in Auckland quite a long time. We've reached the point in Auckland multiculturalism where you put a group like that together, it would naturally be multicultural. And so if when we put that group together, it doesn't represent that wider community, I'll take on board what you're saying, and I accept that's absolutely true. And it's that multicultural community that will also embrace city life as well.
Good. Yanni?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. This is a question to regenerate Christchurch related to this specific project, and if it's not a postgrad, feel free to say it. But I just wanted to know that one of the things that we asked Regenerate Christchurch to do was advise on additional measures around increased momentum and support of regeneration of the central city. So my understanding that work was supposed to happen before this work. Has that work been done, and are there any sort of reports or information around what the priorities are in terms of the central city? Because my understanding was that one of the first things that Regenerate Christchurch was going to do was to look at that blueprint in terms of the central city, evaluate progress and provide advice on what was happening.
Thanks, Yanni. So, a couple of responses to that question. In terms of the letter of expectations and the role of Regenerate Christchurch, one of the things that we have agreed very early on with the Mayor on behalf of the Council and also with the Minister is that we would leverage off existing monitoring and reporting capability within organisations like the Council, like CDC and like central government agencies. What we've done through workshops and discussion is determine the area of focus within the central city. It's not our intention to produce a multitude of reports and reporting mechanisms, but to identify particular areas that require focus and to get on and activate whatever actions are required to achieve the outcomes that we need to.
So is there any sort of, because one of the things that, regulatory tools is something that was touched on in the presentation. It's also touched on in that evaluation. So is there anything that you've identified in terms of regulatory tools that would be useful to either put into this process or to be thinking about now?
So the answer to the question is yes, we've done some work with council officials to look at existing regulatory tools. That's something that will be feeding into the process and something that the steering group will make recommendations on.
Only for this area of the central city?
No, we've looked across the central city itself but that it will be relevant to this area of the central city as well.
Personally, I think it would be really good for us to get a reporting date on that wider work within the central city. I guess at the heart of my question is, how do we know this is the most important thing to do in the central city?
Oh, sorry.
I answer that. I mean, I think I can't say because I have no idea why Regenerate Christchurch employed me. I've always thought myself as being fairly unemployable, which is why I was self-employed for so long. But I was an unusual choice for the position, I think, because they realised that they needed, rather than a policy person, they needed somebody that had a design and development background, because the market in this particular area, if you look at this area that we're sitting at the moment, the market has responded, as has the government. You've got the courts, you've got the Environmental Council, you've got the council, and you've got the large international corporations, all located here. Market responded. East Frame, market has responded, we hope. South Frame, another place that we will be looking at in the future, market hasn't really responded. The one area, Cashel Street, the retail area, market has responded, you know, in quite a magnificent way, actually. You know, if you look at that map, I mean, I think I've been brought in because I will make very quick assessments of things, because I've got a lot of experience, but there's been a lot of work done. And that map that you see, when you look at this area, the market hasn't responded in this core area.
Right.
So that's why we've chosen it. So it's as obvious, and I won't say what it's as obvious as, because it will be reported in the press and I'm on my best behaviour, but it's pretty obvious that the market hasn't responded here. I don't know why. That's what we're trying to find out. And if it's legislation, we'll fix it. If it's encouragement, we'll fix it. If it's investment, we'll look for it. If it's fresh blood, we'll look for that. If it's fresh ideas, which I think is what it is, we'll look for that.
Absolutely.
So we're responding here, but yes, we've also have a duty by June to choose another area of and we are starting a mechanism to look at, with the council, how do we identify a range of places that will need special regeneration. And we've already identified some, but by June we have to come up with another area and a 5-year plan. So there is that piece of what will be going on, but this area is crucial and the time is now. You know, and so we're not messing around. We're not going to sit and write a report, and I don't make any apologies for it. The report will be written as we do it, and recorded as we do it, and the success will be the report. So I don't make any apologies for
the regeneration of our central city in a way that has really not engaged the public since sharing ideas. So, I mean, I'm just delighted by your presentation, and I think that I mean, actually the minister coined a phrase in a slightly different context many years ago, straight after, I think it was back in 2011, which was the phrase, "It's blindingly obvious." And I think the area that you've chosen is blindingly obvious in terms of what needs to be done in order to just catalyse that regeneration experience.
And you know, there is a reason. I think there's a very simple psychological stroke physical reason. That area was shut out. It's the area that was the last area for the public to be let in. It's
right.
Basically a walled city. And that's why I kind of see it like a medieval walled city. And the people were locked out for a long time. It faded into the back of their mind. But it's not, our job is to bring it to the forefront. Because I remember how difficult it was doing anything in that area before without everybody wanting to know what was happening. But there's been bigger issues, as we just heard with the presentation before. But we now have to move forward and grasp the future.
Yeah. Thank you. That's excellent. Thank you very much. All right, well, thank you for your presentation, and we'll move on to item 10. And do we have staff that are coming to the table for this? Or yeah, we do. Now, we've do you want to scroll up to the council recommendation? Because we've made some changes to recommendations, and it's our intention to nominate 3 members to the steering group on the basis that Councillors Manji and Swiggs, obviously Councillor Swiggs with the Central City, Councillor Manji with his focus in terms of his role, finance, and Councillor Scandrett with his background in events, and that particular background. He's the only one of the 3 who's on the board of the new TEED that's being established, the Transition Holdings Limited, and it's going to be really important to make a connection with that new structure that's taking over economic development and all of our CCT visitor strategy, etc., and events. And then finally, an additional 4 councillors to operate with them as a steering group from within the council, to work with our own council staff in order to make sure that we're feeding in as much as we possibly can. I guess that the message is that this is highly important. It absolutely is the heart of the city, and to get this rolling is core critical. So is there anything that you particularly wanted to highlight, or should I just ask councillors for questions? And
maybe given time, just questions.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Yanni?
I just want to understand what the reporting process is from Regenerate Christchurch back to us as council, because I'm still really unclear. And it's similar to the question I raised with Regenerate Christchurch. There's a whole bunch of work that we expect them to do. We've made that really clear in our letter of expectation.
Yeah, I don't know that these are the right staff to be asking this of. It's probably better that you and I have a conversation about it, because I'm obviously more in a position to answer your question than staff are, but that's not what this paper is about.
Well, how will this report back to us then?
The question could be, how do we want it, and that could be a discussion with the end regards to that, rather than asking a chair of this staff.
Yeah.
Something. So I think it's something to be asked next, perhaps internally.
Yeah.
But I also am keen that the other work that we've identified doesn't get delayed by this project. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we've asked Regen Christchurch to do. I mean, I understand the need for this project. What I don't understand is what's happening to all those other things that were prioritised ahead of it, and where that's got to.
That's not a question to ask the staff that are here to talk to this paper, but let's have a conversation afterwards, and let's see if we can clarify what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So, are there any questions of staff? Right. Okay. Well, I would like to move this recommendation. Do I have a seconder for it, Aaron? Is there any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right. So, item 4, presentation of petitions. There are no petitions. Items 5 and 6. 2 confirmations of minutes, so we'll deal with those together. Would someone like to move that the minutes of the 8th of December and the 15th of December be approved? Jimmy Chen seconded Andrew Turner. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Audit and Risk Management Committee 2016 Annual Report, Management Report from Audit New Zealand. Trisha and Di. Thank you. This is obviously, quite a focused technical report in relation to the issues that it raises with respect to skirts. So I particularly was keen for either or both of you to give us a bit of an overview of the issues, in particular the one issue that led to us having the new oh gosh, my brain's not working properly. The new, the comment from the audit office in relation to our capitalising of monies paid to SCIRT, and the second issue is in relation to their handing over of and not knowing the value of the asset valuation problems that we have with as it comes back.
Okay.
Before it comes back.
So I'll give you my version, then Patricia can correct me. The way it works with SCIRT is that we receive monthly accounts from them, which the Crown, Council and NZTA pay as they're received, and that's really to keep them solvent and it is work in progress, so that the amount we pay goes into a work in progress account, because at that point we don't know what's been done for the month, and we have no, and the job isn't finished, so we can't do anything with it. As projects are completed and the paperwork is done and it comes back through the asset owners on the fourth floor and up to ourselves, we then have sufficient detail to identify whether it's a capital project, like for example wastewater pipe replacement, or whether it is just a repair to an existing asset. And Patricia coached me earlier that a repair is something which doesn't extend the life, but a replacement clearly does. And the analogy was painting your house, which doesn't extend the life of your house, whereas if you recladded it from weatherboard to some other cladding, it does, and you'd capitalise that cost. So we get the detail back, we look at it to find out, first of all, is it roading or water or wastewater, and then secondly we look at it to say, is it a capital work or is it something that should be expensed? So that's in an overview what happens.
That's the most simple explanation that I've heard, so I'm glad I asked you the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. The issue around the 55 though is that there are costs. There is in fact 89 million of costs that SCIRT incurred, which was earlier work around the analysis and the investigation of what needed to be done, and our view was that that work was capital. The reason we expensed it 2 years ago is because we were wrongly advised, and so we expensed it, but once we received detail we determined that wasn't the correct treatment, so we reversed it and capitalised it. And the reasons for why I set out in the audit paper for it. Now, audit disagreed with us, and we sought external advice, and we also sought the advice of the Chair of Audit and Risk Committee, and we remained convinced that our approach was correct. So we continue to process it as a capitalised item. Just to give you, if we were to expense it the way audit was suggesting, we'd actually have to write an amount off at the end because we'd have a balance left over. But so in essence, we and audit agreed to disagree. That they didn't agree, but we did, and so we stayed with what we were doing. Now, the other thing that I have to say that was in the back of my mind is we already had a qualified opinion because we knew we couldn't value the roading to a satisfactory level. And so if you've already got a qualified opinion, there's not much worse can happen really, so we stuck to it. And that's in essence why we disagreed with audit. We still think we're right, but you'd appreciate with accounting that it's not always absolutely black and white.
Yeah, but I just wanted to kind of have it on the record that this is a technical issue. It's not it doesn't in any way invalidate any aspect of our report. It's simply a technical disagreement between the auditor and our accountants and our advisors, who are also auditors in their own right. Very good. So, does anyone have any questions? Yanni.
Thank you. I just have two questions. One is, in regards to the valuation of the roading network, I see in the Audit New Zealand letter that we revalued it in 2015, but it wasn't considered adequate. And likewise, they make reference to the stormwater. So, when do we have a date on when we think we can get an adequate evaluation of our roading and our stormwater? And if so, what is that date?
Stormwater's been done this year, and I'm confident that we'll pass the test for stormwater. The problem before had been that we hadn't fully identified the assets because the focus of the asset owners was more around wastewater and roading, which have far greater impact on the accounts. Roading is still an issue, and the problem there is that the traditional method of valuing roading is to look at the age of it, and if the road's 50 years old, then you look to, you know it's going to need total replacement, and it's valued on that basis. The problem we've got with our roading is that because of the damage that's been done, we've got a condition assessment, but the mere fact that a road is only 10 or 20 years old doesn't mean it's going to last another 30 because of the damage done under the earthquake. And the problem we have with ourselves and audit is we can't find a method to value it that everybody can agree on. We have a condition assessment and we have a schedule to repair, but what we can't do is link the condition assessment to the fact that it must be repaired within a certain 5 or 10 year time frame, or that it in fact could extend longer. Now, we've worked on it for 2 years and we are working with audit to try and resolve it, and with the valuers. The problem is no one else values them that way. And we would talk to NZTA, but who obviously have some of the same problem, but they treat it differently. I'm hopeful that we can do it this year, but I have to say I'm not as confident on roading as I am on the stormwater.
Is the methodology for NZTA different because what? Why is the NZTA methodology for valuing roads different from a council?
I didn't go back and check the answer to that. I'm sorry, before I came down. I talked to Mark Yaxley prior to Christmas, and I can certainly go back and follow up on him more, but what I'm saying is the path is not as clear on that as it is on stormwater.
And the second question I had was just in relation to page 32 of our agenda, and the key messages. We're advised that there were separate reports issued, and one of them was a supplementary letter to council on the accounting treatment for the crossing car park agreement. Can you tell us what that was about, and can you tell us what's happening with
Sorry,
that?
what's the item number?
It's the Audit New Zealand report on page 32, item number 7.
Oh, that's 32 of that. What page of the audit report?
2.
Page 2.
It's in the key message section on the very second page.
That was simply around, sorry, can you see it here?
Bullet point 3.
Bullet point 3.
That one there. This is simply how that Audit New Zealand have expressed wanted to raise some issues into how we were going to account for the crossing car park transaction. So we believe they had done it the year before because we'd presented the information to them for the 2015 accounts, and they hadn't come back with any problem. What we didn't realise was that the impact on the accounts in 2015 was only 3 million, and they didn't consider it material. So they raised quite late in the 2016 audit that they were unhappy with our treatment of it. At that point, it was getting towards August. We didn't have time to come back to them with a satisfactory answer. So we are seeking outside advice, and we'll be talking to them. The report goes back to the Audit and Risk Committee in April with our approach, and we will then proceed from there.
Thank you.
Very good. Would someone like to move that we receive the report? Jimmy Chen, seconded David East. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 8, proposed ground lease to North Hagley Community Sports and Recreation Charitable Trust over the part of Hagley Park where the former United Bowling Club rooms and green space is situated. Would someone like to move this one? Mike Davidson, seconded Andrew Turner. Is there any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Adoption of the 2017 meeting schedule. We've got a revised schedule. which just makes a couple of minor changes. It's on the hub. And there are hard copies available if people want them.
Or just be aware that on this schedule, the Innovation and Sustainability Committee doesn't meet till April, and since it's already getting underway and doing interesting things, it might be sensible if it met before that, and probably sensible to have a programmed monthly meeting and then not use it, rather than only meet monthly.
I don't know why it's been...
because we weren't thinking about meeting in the conventional way.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but I don't know why it was not put until April.
Because of Good Friday.
Eh?
So they don't start till March, and the Friday that it's on is Good Friday.
It's an April day.
No?
Good Friday's April.
I'll slot
Good
one
Friday's the week after it.
Is it? Is it? Okay. Anyway, what we'd like to do is just
Have
make
one
sure...
booked for March.
Put one in March.
Yeah.
And
Put it on
then
the 22nd.
Put them in monthly, but
22nd.
not use them if we don't need them.
Okay. Well, do you want one at the end of February as well? Because we'll have the terms of reference done by the end of February, won't we?
You've got all the other ones
Yeah.
starting in March.
Eh? Oh, sorry, Megan.
That's okay. The terms of reference will be going to the council meeting expected on the 23rd of February. So I could put the, yep. So I could put innovation in on the 22nd of March to get into that cycle, and then put them monthly
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
The 24th of March.
22nd, because they normally would fall, it's a committee day, so it would be a Wednesday. Sometimes they have to go off because of Easter and various things. It seems to be that fourth week that's always messed around a little bit, but normally we'd try and put them on the Wednesday with the other committees.
Can you have informal meetings? Can you have informal meetings?
Yeah.
So you're not meeting on Fridays?
I don't mind when we meet. I just think it would be sensible if it was on the schedule, and then we can change and amend, but not having it on the schedule makes it very difficult.
Yeah, I just...
It's okay. Megan will sort it, won't you? No.
Is Friday too conventional for you?
No, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Instead of that extra meeting on 22nd March.
But it's not in May.
Who did that? Yeah, Megan can...
Yeah, but it's not been put in May either. So
No, my instruction was to only have them every second month, but I can amend that.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
That's fine. We may only
I can change it.
all right. So well, why don't you just put that the Innovation Sustainable Development Committee meet on the 22nd of month and a scheduled meeting every month, and has a scheduled meeting every month.
Yeah. It's fine.
And that means that if you don't require the meeting, then you can. Yeah. Aaron.
I'm assuming it's got something to do with our liquor policy, but we've taken out the 31st of December. Is that off the calendar?
I've probably just dropped it off.
Right.
But
So
during,
it's not.
Yeah.
So we haven't taken out the date to save on all the.
No.
Are you wanting to have a New Year's
bands?
meeting?
Yeah.
Shorter year this year.
No.
Yeah.
It'll happen anyway. New Year's Eve will happen. Sorry.
You should be hearing your own view from that.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely sitting on the top one the month before. All right. You're all good? Yep. Jamie moves. Seconded. Sarah? Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.
Thank Megan for that work, because I'm
Yeah,
sure
thanks,
it's no
Megan.
mean feat.
I know we're very challenging. Yes.
Thank you.
Above and beyond the call of duty. Reallocation of a heritage incentive grant, number 11. Sorry, who moved that? Aaron, seconded Phil. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I want to hear from staff. I'm not sold on this one.
Okay. Yet again, we'll hear from staff on the Woods Mill 14 Wise Street, Addington. We've heard it twice before, so now we'll hear it for a third time. No. I'm not. I'm just acknowledging the fact that this is the third time that the council's looked at this grant.
I'm wondering if Councillor Gough could be a little more specific than not sold on this one. It would help me to kind of relate it.
I was wanting... Well, I don't know. Well, it wouldn't be that appealing with its track record. But I guess why I flagged that, I'm not diametrically opposed to this. I was just hoping that you may be able to sway us with your sweet words on why it is worth pursuing with this. I just get nervous, and I'm reading this and it's like deja vu again and again. And, it's the sort of thing if people have tried and failed and tried and failed, and it's like a hot potato that really looks terribly unappealing and has been unable to work for a number of different people. So I'm getting to the point where I'm slightly cynical reading the report, thinking, do you know what, there are actually a lot of good causes out there, a lot of buildings which people are getting on with and will be probably coming to the council, tying money up in something which is a bit of a sinking ship, or historically has been a sinking ship and has gone nowhere. I was unconvinced on whether or not we want to be putting such a large sum of money aside for something that I have minimal confidence in at best that will actually get off the ground.
So let me start, and then Fiona can perhaps come in with the detail of the scheme. So Woods Mill is pretty much the last remaining industrial building that represents the kind of industrial past of the city, and you will recognise that things like the Edmonds building, and more recently, oh crumbs, it's just gone from my head, the one that was that the train went through where the cinema was.
The train station? Oh, the Woolen Mill? The Woolen store? Yeah. So this is the last remaining building. The prospective owner has a background in structural engineering, and I think probably has a better understanding of the kind of scale and complexity of the project, but also my understanding, and I'll hand over to Fiona, is that he has a simpler approach to the strengthening and the adaptive reuse than perhaps earlier schemes have had. But at that point, it's probably appropriate for me to hand over to Fiona to fill in the detail.
Well, yeah, there's probably two reasons why we think this is potentially one that's going to fly as opposed to the ones that have fallen down. So yes, one is that the new owner, potential owner, is a structural engineer. He fully understands the building. He's come up with a scheme which is actually, as I think our report says, it's less invasive than the previous schemes we've said. So in terms of the heritage retention, it's actually a much more preferable scheme for us. There's a much more minimal loss of heritage fabric than previous schemes we've said, sort of less concrete, less steel. You're going to, the end result, you should actually read the building much better. And the previous scheme that came into you guys, they were actually intending to take down one entire bay of the mill building itself, which is that 3-storey, the larger of the two buildings on the site, whereas this one, he said there's no need to do that. You can keep the bay, you can just stitch it back to the main part of the building. So from our point of view as well, that's a far better outcome. And the other sort of strand to why potentially this is going to work better is that I think they're looking at more appropriate uses. I mean, previously I think they've looked at trying to use the mill building as a hotel and things like that, and that was just problemmatic all round in terms of adapting it and using it, whereas this one, they're being quite pragmatic about it. So they're looking at commercial office space for both buildings, and the And for the mill building, I think sort of commercial office space all the way through, although potentially you could adapt the ground floor to sort of retail or something like that if that turned out to be more appropriate. But at the moment, office space is really the key thing in this area. And then potentially you've still got that sort of restaurant cafe use and the grain store next door, but with offices above. So I think it's better heritage outcomes, more pragmatic potential uses. This guy knows the building inside out. He's looked at the engineering on it before. He's done this worldwide as well in terms of the engineering, so he really knows what he's talking about in those terms. And for us as well, it's a much lighter touch. It's a much better heritage outcome. And this industrial, it's almost a complex because you've got the two buildings and the open space to the front of it, and it's a really rare thing for us to have in Christchurch now, so we are really keen to try and retain this one, which is why we keep sort of trying to move this grant on. And I think this looks like the best opportunity we've had so far with this complex.
And is he, so is he local? Is he familiar with the new developer then? Familiar with the Christchurch land? I don't want to get in, I guess, so much or make decisions based on how feasible I think it is.
Yeah.
We've got an oversupply of office space.
Yeah.
Addington offices are not on the up. You've got an oversupply of office space centrally, far better quality buildings. The rent will be far more attractive. Better quality in the sense that it's A-grade buildings, new, not necessarily cooler. But I'm just saying that that they're a higher grade building, which will be cheaper. Back of the envelope stuff, it looks really challenging that you could get rents that could actually approach making that stack up. So all credit to him. If that does he have experience then in Christchurch and familiar with our
He's
economic
been
landscape? Around
for the last 5-6 years. He moved here soon after the quakes. Initially he came with an American company that came in to help with the engineering, and basically he stayed and he set up his own company. And
people that want to do this sort of stuff though too, I think you've got to back, and it's kind of no loss for us in the sense that if it doesn't, the money doesn't go. What my concern was around, and I think you've answered it, was opportunity cost. Have we got other things that that could be more of a goer or may look more promising that may miss out as a result of that? Do you think that that's going to be the case? Anything on the horizon that may be missing out if we back this one which hasn't got a stellar track record?
Not that I know of at the moment. Sorry. There's potentially some people interested in grants at the moment, but nothing on this scale, and nothing that this. There are other grants that could fall within what we've got available, because this has already been allocated. The stuff that we've got coming through, there's still some money available for what I know of that might be on the horizon, and literally isn't yet. If that makes sense.
And thanks, Liam, for letting us have a little bit.
No, I think actually your question was quite useful because the explanation, certainly I think has just opened up people's eyes to the significance of the building in terms of what it represents. Because it's not just the fact that it's heritage; it's the type of heritage that it is. I remember when the Edmonds building came down, I refused to have anything to do with anything that ever replaced it. I've never bought petrol at the petrol station that was there, and I've never shopped at any of the shops there. And I know that none of the shop owners are to blame for it, but I just think it was willful destruction, totally unnecessary. And this is an opportunity to keep one of our industrial buildings.
No, I'll be supporting it.
Aaron, Phil, and Tim Yarney.
So on that Edmonds one, Madam Chair, is that the reason why you told your husband you wouldn't pick up a cookbook again for the last 20 years?
You've had a good break.
Look, I think clearly there is other funding if other applications come in. This is an outstanding example of industrial heritage, as we've been told, and it's I think Councillor Goff supports too. That in fact it's worth giving these guys a punt, and we've supported it before, and here is still an opportunity, and certainly I think it's worth this. And I think the skills that have been described to us with the need for a new engineering approach, by the sound of it, I think that can give us some confidence that this is certainly a useful opportunity, and we hope it succeeds.
Tim, Yanni?
I get this was discussed at the informal this morning, and your concerns were actually shared around the members around the informal. But I do think that when we talked about it, that this is the third potential developer to have a crack at this. There's more information each time it's looked at. With this developer's background, there's probably more potential for this to be successful, because this is such realistically, as Fiona has said, this is the last really of this kind of building in our city. It is incredibly significant, and we've really got to give them maybe one more go and see that this flies. And fair enough, if it doesn't, then we do have to take a hard look as if this building can ever be in this category. So.
Yep. Yanni?
Oh, thank you. I think the question raises the important issue of, do we have a heritage strategy? Because it seems that just giving money to heritage buildings isn't necessarily the right way to actually get them saved. So is there a kind of, where is the heritage strategy at? And do you think it would be useful to have a bit more proactive thought into how we actually save some of our most iconic heritage buildings in the city, including grants, but also other things that we can do?
You will be well aware that heritage staff have been completely focused on the heritage provisions in the district plan review. That was one of the last chapters to be considered by the independent hearings panel, and so staff have literally just started to turn their mind to the heritage strategy, and it is on the work programme, and we're working with Heritage New Zealand, Department of Conservation and other key stakeholders to look at what the scope of that strategy should be, and in fact, is it a strategy, or what are the tools and levers that are needed now in the city? So we're just starting that work and starting those conversations.
Very good. All right, well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Heritage Incentive Grant Approval for 39 Kahu Road. Someone like to move that? Jamie, seconded by Aaron. Any questions? Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Development Contributions Policy Review. We wanted to get a little bit more work done on this, Carlene. Are we going to resolve to... Oh yes, we've got this here. That the Council defer consideration of this report and request that staff provide additional information in relation to the Development Contributions Policy as it relates to the Central Business District prior to consideration of the report. So, so would someone like to move that? Yanni, would you like to move that? Yanni moves, seconded by Phil. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And the last matter on this part of the agenda, the submission on the health fluoridation of drinking water amendment bill. Now, there's a copy of the submission on everyone's desk. So we've had it updated, and the key elements of the update is that we oppose the bill because community consultation has not made a requirement for the decision maker in relation to a decision to fluoridate drinking water, and so under the Local Government Act, the bill proposes that the decision making around fluoridation go from the local authority, who has an obligation under the Local Government Act to consult its communities over decisions of significance, and this is a significant decision. It transfers the decision making to a decision maker that doesn't have an obligation to consult on any of the decisions that it makes, and then if the new decision maker is then given the position of, the new decision maker makes a decision that the water is fluoridated, then the cost is met by the local authority, that has no say in the decision making. So, and that means that the cost comes back to the ratepayers of a district, even though they haven't been consulted over what is a significant cost. We opposed the resolution at the Local Government New Zealand conference, which sought to see the decision making transfer through to the Ministry of Health, and because they saw it as a health decision. But I think that councils around the country that voted for that change to the law expected that the decision making would also be accompanied by the funding responsibility, and of course the government's done the complete opposite, which is interesting. They've handed it not to the Ministry of Health for a health decision to apply across the country. They've handed it to individual district health boards. So in our region, we've got 2 district health boards. We've got the Canterbury District Health Board and the South Canterbury District Health Board. And then each district health board makes its own decision. If the Canterbury DHB decided that its water supplies, plural, would be fluoridated, then the cost for Christchurch City alone would be 10.5 million capital. That's a approximate sum of money. It could be more than that, and over $500,000 per year operational. So it's a significant cost to the city and the district that it has. The peninsula is part of our responsibility as well. We have multiple levels of multiple points of drawing from different public water suppliers that supply our district. So I think this submission is now a lot firmer than the one that we looked at in its draft form, and so I'm really keen to open that up for. I mean, if there are any questions of staff, but I mean, it's not questions really other than technical questions, and then just probably a quick debate on whether we accept this submission, and then whether we want to appear in support of the submission or not. Pauline. Sarah.
Sort of a question. I'm just wondering if we, and it's on the content, but whether we should, in our conclusion, actually put some more emphasis on the point of difference that we have here in Christchurch, because of the way we source our water, and because of the cost implications of that we do have a point of difference, and therefore that could well affect the viability of any proposal. I'm just wondering if that needs to be highlighted and strengthened, and then you could just refer paragraphs 4, 5, 6, 9. And also, I also would like to have 17A inserted in our conclusion there, that looking at all practicable options for the achievement of the objective that doesn't include mass medication. I'd just like to see those 2 things actually highlighted at the conclusion as well, and wonder about the will of the table to do that.
Sorry, which part do you want in the conclusion?
To read that Christchurch has a point of difference in how its water is sourced, which could affect the financial viability of this proposal, and that would refer to paragraphs 4, 5, 6 and 9 in the report, and also to strengthen, to make sure 17A is included in the conclusion, which is actually seeking innovative ideas to achieve this, all practical options, without mass medication.
Yeah, I don't want to refer to mass medication, because that sounds like the argument.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
And it's not the argument. We're not
exploring other options, I think, is...
yeah, but that is an obligation under the Local Government Act, you're quite right,
yeah.
And it should be highlighted.
Thank you.
Yep. Sarah?
It's the those democratic principles and things. When we look at the DHBs, and point 24 there talks about the DHBs and the difference between those who are appointed and elected and the potential for conflict there. The DHBs, my understanding is that DHBs have to meet what's required by the Ministry of Health, and so it's this: if there's a directive from the ministry that dental care, those kind of things, be a key consideration, would they have to make the decision to, no matter what the elected members stood for anyway? Would there be an imperative for them to decide to do it?
Sorry, I don't know enough about the background workings of the DHB. I don't know.
Some of the submissions made previously around fluoridation from DHBs is they meet the cost of the medical side of it, so that's why they meet that. Admittedly, it's out of a grant from the government, don't get me wrong, but so in the past I've made submissions saying that it's far more cost effective to put fluoride in than for them to treat, but that's one group paying, another group benefiting, and that's the problem. So that's really the difference. But I would say, and I suppose our members sitting away from the board at the moment, but any place that I've seen a DHB appear around fluoridation, it's been on a cost benefit basis, that it was the benefits outweigh the costs.
Okay.
Yes. One of the things, could I just ask you a question? It is that second sentence in 3.1. It submits the legislation will remain unaltered because of that requirement of the Local Government Act to get community views. If you read that, that's saying basically you want the decision to stay with council. I just wanted to confirm that. It's kind of hidden in the submission here. Maybe it's, I just wanted to make sure that's what the intention is if you read that sentence.
Fluoride in water in Christchurch, given the strong emotional attachment that people have to water, you need to consult this community incredibly well, and this seeks to take away any consultation. A lot of people will be making submissions on
If
this.
the DHB or the Ministry of Health had to fund and had to consult under exactly the same conditions, would we want the decision making sitting here or sitting else? This says no matter what, we want it to sit with council, and that's just what I wanted to clarify.
Our primary view is that the legislative framework shouldn't change.
Yes.
Our secondary position, our fallback position as it were, is that if the decision is made to transfer the decision maker, then actually central government has to fully fund both the costs of establishing fluoridation and the ongoing operational costs. And the reason that we've highlighted central government as being really the source of this for the funding of it is because if they make the DHBs pay without increasing the amount, then something else will give in terms of the DHB funding for the area. And I'm not in favour of seeing our DHB, sort of more underfunded, as a result of a decision that it may want to make around fluoridation.
I might just talk to Judith and whether we pull that second sentence out to be a point so it is highlighted slightly more.
Or maybe that we should start that it opposes the bill because it opposes the bill and submits that the legislation must continue to allow the local authority to be the decision maker because there is a requirement under that Act for councils to consider community views before making such a significant decision.
Yep. And that would just, I think, clarify and make it a bit clearer maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but we've got to state our opposition to the bill. Yeah. All right? Yep. Would someone like to...
So people with amendments
as
discussed.
Yeah, with amendments as discussed. And do we want to appear in support of the submission?
I think you just made a compelling case. I think you should go.
Well, we'll ask them to come here. I actually think that there's going to be quite a few submissions from Christchurch. So, and... I know that if the test of the Vicky Buck Facebook page is anything to go by, there will be a lot of submissions from Christchurch. So we will certainly ask for them to hear submissions in Christchurch.
Yep, excellent.
We could put that in here too.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Did you, just one thing in terms of just making a position known to LGNZ. Is there any?
Yeah, we will.
It'd be good to circulate it to them.
So can we send a copy to LGNZ as well? But I've got to speak to them about something else, so I'll mention.
And there's also the regional mayoral forum tomorrow.
The regional mayoral forum tomorrow can be informed by me.
And tomorrow, I have been having some conversations with the medical officer of health once he's seen it, and I don't know what they're saying, but the DHB's making a submission, so I have a meeting with him tomorrow morning, so I will tell him basically where the council's come from, if that's all right by council.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's
probably.
Sorry? I don't know what their submission is. I'll probably find out tomorrow, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so would someone like to move it? Vicky, seconded Pauline. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And the next item of the agenda is the resolution to exclude public for all of the reasons set out on page 191 of the agenda. So I'll move that, seconded by Andrew. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. So I figure we come back at 2:30. That gives everyone a chance to get a cup of coffee if they want to.
Coffee at 3.
Yeah, they haven't organised afternoon tea because, but if you want to go downstairs and grab a coffee, come back at 2:30. Thank you. Somebody could get me a coffee. Hey? It is now. It's been online since the agenda went out. Hey? Yeah. There was a story in the paper earlier this week. Yeah. It's public. We just did that in public. Yeah.